Come, I want to take you somewhere tonight. Somewhere the world slows down the moment you arrive. Where the mountains don't rush. Where the fog doesn't apologize for taking its time. This is a story about a woman who was tired in the way that sleep couldn't fix, and what the mountain quietly showed her on the night she finally stopped running. There is a small town high in the mountains called Ashveil. You won't find it easily. The road that leads there is narrow and unpaved and winds through pine forests so old and dense that the light comes through in thin silver threads, like the trees are deciding how much of the sky you're allowed to see. The town itself is small. A baker who opens before dawn, a market that runs on Saturdays, and conversations. Stone houses with thick walls built to hold warmth in and noise out. In winter, the snow comes quietly, not like a storm, like a decision. And the mountains above the town are always there, in every season, in every weather, patient, unchanging, asking nothing, just being, the way old things do. Sara arrived in Ashveil on a Tuesday with one bag and the particular kind of tiredness that has no single reason. You know that tiredness, don't you? It isn't from one bad night, it's from 100 small things over a very long time. The alarm clocks, the deadlines, the feeling of always being slightly behind something you can never quite see. She had been a good employee, a good daughter, a good friend, always available, always capable, always fine. Until one morning she woke up and realized she had no idea who she was when nobody needed anything from her. So she packed one bag, found a small guest house in Ashveil from an old travel article she barely remembered saving, and came, without a plan, without a timeline, without a single idea of what was supposed to happen next.
The first 2 days she slept, deeply, like someone recovering from something they hadn't yet named. On the third day, she walked, just to the edge of the town, where the paved road ended and the mountain path began. She stood there for a long time, looking up. The pine trees were enormous and completely unbothered, by her, by anything. They had been there for centuries before she arrived. They would be there for centuries after she left. And somehow, that was the most comforting thing she had felt in years. That the world could be so old and so steady and so completely uninterested in her productivity. She laughed a little, to herself, the first laugh in a long time that didn't have a reason. On the 5th night, the power went out in Ashveil. Not dramatically, just quietly. One moment the lamp was on, the next, darkness. Sara sat very still in her small guesthouse room, with the mountain outside the window and nothing to look at. No screen, no light, no distraction. Just her and the dark, and the sound of wind moving through pine trees somewhere above. She waited for the panic, the restlessness, the need to do something, fix something, fill the silence with something. But it didn't come. Instead, something else arrived, quietly, without announcing itself, like a guest who doesn't knock because they know they were always welcome. Stillness. Real stillness. Not the stillness of waiting for something, but the stillness of not needing anything to be different from exactly what it is. After a long time, she moved to the window and looked out at the mountain. In the darkness, she could see things she hadn't noticed before. The outline of the peaks against a sky full of stars. So many stars. The kind you only see when every other light is finally off. And at the edge of the mountain path, she noticed something small. A single lantern, hanging from the branch of an old pine, burning steadily, warm and amber, completely unbothered by the darkness surrounding it. She put on her coat and walked toward it. The night air was cold and clean, smelling of pine and something ancient and mineral. Mountain air, the kind that reminds your lungs what they were made for. When she reached the lantern, she stood underneath it, looking up at the flame, small, steady, burning without effort, without urgency, without needing anyone to notice it to keep going.
A voice came from nearby, soft and unhurried. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Sara turned. An old woman was sitting on a low stone wall a few steps away, wrapped in a thick shawl, holding a small cup of something warm. Like she had been there for hours, like darkness was simply where she preferred to sit. Sara asked her whose lantern it was. The old woman smiled. "Mine. I light it every night when the power goes out. Been doing it for 30 years. Sara looked at the lantern, then back at her. "Aren't you afraid of the dark?" The old woman considered this for a moment, the way people do when a question deserves a real answer. Then she said, "I used to be, but then I started paying attention, and I noticed everything that matters grows in it. Seeds, roots, rest, stars, even courage. None of it happens in the bright, noisy light. It all happens in the quiet dark, when we're not watching, when we've finally stopped trying to make it happen faster." Sara stood there for a long time after that, under the lantern, in the dark, with the mountain above her, and the stars, and the old woman quietly finishing her tea, and something inside Sara that had been clenched for a very long time opened. Not dramatically, not with any great realization, just opened, like a hand that has been holding something too tightly, finally remembering it doesn't have to. She thought about everything she had been waiting for, the right time, the right feeling, the right version of herself that would finally be ready. And she wondered, what if it was already growing, quietly, in the dark, in the waiting, in the stillness she had been running from all this time. She stayed in Ashveil for 2 more weeks. She didn't do very much, walked in the mornings, sat with tea in the afternoons, watched the baker open before dawn once or twice, let the mountains be large and herself be small in a way that felt like relief rather than defeat. On the morning she left, she walked one last time to the old pine tree. The lantern was dark in the daylight, just a simple tin thing hanging from a branch, but she stood there anyway and said, "Thank you," to the lantern, to the mountain, to the dark, to the waiting, to all the quiet growing she couldn't see but had finally learned to trust. Maybe you are in your own dark season right now. Maybe things feel slow, uncertain, like nothing is happening, like you are standing still while everything else moves. I want you to hear this, quietly, like the mountain would say it if mountains spoke. The seed doesn't panic in the dark soil. The root doesn't rush toward the light. The star doesn't apologize for only being visible when everything else goes quiet, and neither should you. Some things only grow in the dark. Trust the waiting. Trust the stillness. Trust the version of yourself that is quietly becoming something, even now, especially now, when you cannot see it yet. Rest tonight. The mountain is not worried, and neither should you be.